The African penguin is a unique animal. You know, penguins are one of those flightless birds. They don't have the capability of flying through the air like many of our birds of prey and other passerines and such. These animals are really adapted for moving through the water. The wings have evolved into flippers, and that's really cool because these wings are dense bones and they travel about 15 miles an hour through the water. They have their feathers they're stiff, but they have the ability to capture air under them to assist in part of the insulating value that they have by when they live in their habitat, which the waters that they have to swim in to fish are very cold, and they need to capture that air for insulation factor. Their feet are adaptive in the sense that they release heat through their feet. It's a way to be able to manage their temperature since they are in a habitat that's very warm. South Africa is very warm. They have to manage that. They're not cold weather penguins like the subantarctic penguins that we have, but they deal with cold waters, but they don't deal with the cold air and the temperatures. So they're very cool. They also have the ability here, there's a gland up above the eyes that gets pink when they're overheating, and that will allow blood vessels to swell so they can offset the heat through these glands on top of the eye. Other evolutionary things that are pretty neat is they have dense bones. You have a water bottle that is floating on top, and that's like the hollow bones of a bird that flies. You have the water bottle that's down in the water column that's dense, and so it's buoyant in the water column. So you can see that, you know, a bird like a pigeon or a chicken with air in its bones, it just float on top of the water. It cannot get down into the water column. They have the ability to swim, hold their breath for about 2.5 minutes, and get down as deep as 100 feet. Usually an average about 30 feet, but they still get down there. Do penguins mate for life? Well, you know what? Life in the wild can be a little short. So if you lose a mate, you're going to find another mate. They become sexually mature around 4 years of age, and then they will breed until they are dead and gone. You know, they will continually to return back to their nest site, their nest beach where they were hatched. They can breed throughout the year. They lay 2 eggs, and it's usually going to be either in a nest burrow that they've dug out of the sand and guano, or it'll be in a sheltered burrow. A lot of the cliffs and the area around the beach, the surf comes up and creates cavities, little dig outs out of the cliffs where the birds can nest. They have a sharp bill. The bill has a tip on it that it's able to just grab the fishes. They also have the adaptation of that nictitating membrane over the eye. So when that sardine or that herring is thrashing back and forth before the bird gets to the surface to swallow it, it's doing a lot of thrashing and probably trying to jab at the eyes. That third eyelid, in a sense, protects the eyes so they can get up there. They have a cat-like tongue, which is really interesting. It's a barbed tongue that helps draw the fish into their throat and their stomach and helps it move along. the African penguins live on the tip of South Africa and Namibia. So we can't forget the Namibian population. However, those individual birds are less counted in a sense because the government of Namibia does not allow researchers into that area. On most of the mainland nesting colonies, predators are mongoose, civets, feral cats, leopards. They will come up and get the eggs or the young chicks. Out on the islands, the island colonies, the kelp gulls or ibises will come down and get the egg or the chick. One of the things I wanted to talk about earlier is our predators. So we talked about how the eggs were can be eaten by kelp gulls or ibises, the sacred ibis down in South Africa. They have predators like the leopard seal. This is a replica skull of a leopard seal. Cape fur seals, and sharks will also eat penguins. But you can just imagine, I mean, the size of these teeth on a leopard seal and how they can crush an animal, a penguin for sure. A Cape fur seal or leopard seal can eat up to 18 birds a day. And so if you look at the populations of birds and having less than 50,000 individuals out there, and you have rogue fur seals eating 18 a day, man, we have to do something to protect those birds. One of the things to notice about South Africa, there is the Benguela current. That is a nutrient-rich current that these animals depend on. When they go out to forage, they're foraging on that current. And if you know anything like of the currents along in the southern hemisphere, like the Humboldt current in Peru, the Benguela current in South Africa, these currents come out from the depths of the ocean, and they hit that cliff, that ocean cliff, and they shoot up, bringing all this great nutrient of fishes and organisms into an area where it can be collected and eaten by these animals. So they go out and they forage. They eat a lot of pelagic fishes. They eat anchovies. They eat sardines. They eat mackerel, herring, capelin, squid, some crustaceans. Here in the aquarium, under professional animal care, we feed pretty much a good amount of fishes that they will eat in the wild. So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. So we do feed out sardines. We feed out silver sides. We feed out capelin, herring, smelt, and sometimes squid. It all depends on the season. African penguins, on a good day, when you're totally hungry, they can eat 40 fishes the size of a dollar bill. That's like us eating 100 cheeseburgers in a day. So, wow, that's a lot of food. But we feed, we manage. We'll allow, birds will almost self-regulate. And so we'll provide enough food in a day that the birds will consume. But we do it scientifically. We measure out the food, we identify who's eating, and we weigh it out, and we can get an idea of who's eating. And so if I have an animal that's only eating 3 fish or 1 fish for a long period of time, that almost triggers you to be able to say, you know what, we need to step in here, maybe take some blood work, check a fecal, and see if there's any abnormalities in the birds. So these birds will travel up to 50 miles to get fish. Now, the chicks, they'll feed these chicks. One parent will go out at a time. For the first couple of weeks, they'll protect the nest, which is really cool. But then as the chicks grow, then all of a sudden both parents need to go out and feed. So they'll go out and collect, gather fish, they swallow it, and they come back and regurgitate to their young. you can imagine when the adults come back to the nest and the chick is sitting there, the chick has actually got his bill up like this, and they're making a vocalization, and the adult's bill goes over it, and they shake back and forth, and they swallow. So when the chicks are young, they're being fed smaller fishes. When we feed them under professional animal care and we're feeding chicks, we may put it into a gruel and kind of feed it back with a tube of some sorts. When they are feeding in the wild, they may forage for smaller fishes and then bigger fishes as the chicks grow. So the bigger fishes will come back and they'll regurgitate, the adults will regurgitate this fish back to the chick. The total fish is so nutrient bound. Instead of just picking and choosing what you feed out, the birds will eat the whole thing and get everything. The African penguin has had its decline over decades. Back in the early 19th century, there were the African penguin eggs were ate as a delicacy. The guano was used as fertilizer, and all of that did great harm to the populations. We watched populations from the millions decline to a point where they're in danger. We're watching their decline, and we need to set out to protect. One of the things that we can do as individuals is support sustainable fisheries. Support the Seafood Watch program that is here in the States. We can support the rescue and rehabilitation facilities like SANCOB that the Newport Aquarium does. SANCOB is the South African Foundation for Conservation of Coastal Birds. That organization does reach out to help preserve the islands and the habitat of the birds. Also rescuing the birds or rehabilitating the birds and getting them back out into the wild. Both parents brood the nest, brood the eggs. The incubation is between 35 and 40 days. Once they hatch, they're a fuzzy little thing about the size of a baseball, but they will develop quickly because in their environment they have to develop quickly. So with both parents feeding, that chick will grow and grow to about the size, by the time they get to an adult size, they're about 35 days old. Now, does that mean they're ready to go out on their own? No, not at all. That they will, when they get to about 4 weeks, both parents will be going out to forage, like I said earlier, but then the chicks, in their fuzzy state, they will all gather together in that nest colony and form a creche, a group of chicks gathering together for protection. So once they fledge, the chicks fledge, they will all be blue in color, or kind of a grayish blue, but they'll have adult feathers. They will not gain their adult plumage, their coloration of black and white, until they're about 18 months or 22 months old. So and at that time, when they're blue and they've got their adult plumage, they will be going out to the ocean and foraging on their own until it's time to come back and start contributing to the colony. When they come back to their nesting colony, where they will find a mate and they will build a nest and just kind of be within that colony. So they don't travel from colony to colony, they stick with that one colony. In the socialization of these birds and in colonies, there's vocalizations. There's also visual signs, visual communications, where there's a head bobbing, gestures, bowing, a wing slap on the back of the bird. That's ways of communicating. The birds also have individual spot patterns on their chest. These spot patterns are different, just like your and I's fingerprint. These animals are black and white. Evolutionary, this is an adaptation. It's called counter shading. So they are black on top, white on the bottom. If you're swimming, if I'm a predator swimming above this animal and looking down, the darkness of the feathers blends in with the depths of the ocean. If I'm a predator swimming above the animal, looking up, the white blends in with the lightness and the bright of the ocean surface. So it's difficult to see. So these animals have developed many adaptations for survival. They have this adaptation to excrete this salt. So they have the ability to excrete the salt through almost like a snot or a spit in a way. You'll see these birds every once in a while, they'll shake their head a little violently, and they're casting out this mist that's salt. And so they balance their body by doing that. It's almost like, our nasal cavities, we have these debris or stuff in our bodies that we're trying to get rid of, and we do that through just blowing our nose. And that's simply what they're doing, is they're just blowing out salt water or high concentrations of salt. We can do so much throughout with the Wave Foundation here at the Newport Aquarium, and through using these birds as ambassadors for penguin conservation and marine environment preservation. We have a penguin parade that we do every day, that we go out and meet the guests, and they can get up close and personal with these birds and be able to see how really cool they are and get beyond the glass. Our birds have the ability to be those ambassadors and make that connection with wildlife. And being so close to these animals, you almost want to go out and do something. And when we make that connection with our guests, we hope that they will be those patriots for conservation and go out there and say, we need to do the recycling. We need to protect our watersheds and our waterways. If you can do it locally, it will make an impact globally. So those are all things that we need to do. And these guys make great ambassadors. People love penguins. And so we hope people will come into the Newport Aquarium, learn more, support the Wave Foundation, and so we can protect our African penguins.